When billionaire CEO Michael Peterson stops for a jog in Central Park, he never expects to meet his estranged sister's daughter, or that this chance encounter would lead him to Sofia Martinez, a community center director who will teach him the true meaning of wealth and transform his life forever. But before we continue, hit that subscribe button to never miss a story, and let us know in the comments which city you're watching from today. Michael Peterson sat alone in his huge office on the top floor of the Peterson Technologies building. The sun was setting over New York City, but he barely noticed. At 45 years old, he had more money than he could ever spend, but something was missing. The empty feeling in his chest wouldn't go away, no matter how many deals he closed or how many millions he made. Mr. Peterson, his assistant Sarah, called through the intercom. "Your last meeting is cancelled. Would you like me to order dinner?" "No need," Michael answered. "I'm heading out early today." He grabbed his expensive running shoes from the closet in his office. Sunday evenings were the only time he allowed himself to relax a little. The park would be quiet now, perfect for his usual jog. 20 minutes later, Michael was running through Central Park. His security team followed at a distance. He'd learned to ignore them years ago. The cool evening air felt good on his face. This was the only time he felt somewhat normal, away from the pressure of running his company. Hey, mister!" A child's voice caught his attention. Michael usually ignored people who tried to talk to him in public, but something made him stop. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, was running toward him. She had bright brown eyes and dark curly hair in 2 braids. "I know you," the little girl said, jumping up and down with excitement. "Your picture is in my mommy's wallet." Michael stared at her, confused. "I think you must be mistaking me for someone else." "Nope, it's you. Come see my mommy. She's right over there." The girl grabbed his hand before he could stop her. His security team moved closer, but Michael waved them back. Something about this little girl's smile made him curious. She pulled him toward a bench where a woman was frantically looking through her purse. Rose, where did you go? I told you not to run off," the woman called out. Michael's heart stopped. That voice. He knew that voice. The woman looked up and the color drained from her face. "Michael, Rachel," he whispered. His sister, his baby sister who he hadn't seen in 10 years. The last time he'd seen her, she'd been desperate, begging him for another chance, for more money to pay off her gambling debts. He'd turned her away, told her he was done enabling her addiction. He'd cut her out of his life completely, but the woman standing in front of him now looked different. Her eyes were clear and bright, like her daughter's. She stood tall, confident. This wasn't the same Rachel he'd last seen crying in his office a decade ago. "Mommy, see, I told you it was him," Rose said proudly. "The man from your wallet picture." Rachel touched her daughter's shoulder. "Rose, honey, this is your Uncle Michael." "I have an uncle?" Rose's eyes got even bigger. "How come you never told me?" The question hung in the air between them. Michael shifted uncomfortably. His running clothes suddenly felt too casual for such an important moment. "It's complicated, sweetie," Rachel said softly. She looked at Michael with uncertainty. "We haven't seen each other in a very long time." "But he's here now," Rose said, happily. "Can he come have cookies with us? I just helped Mommy bake chocolate chip cookies." Michael opened his mouth to say no, to make an excuse about an important meeting, but Rose's hopeful face stopped him. He looked at Rachel, asking permission without words. Rachel hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. If you'd like to, Michael. We live just a few blocks away." "Please, Uncle Michael," Rose begged, taking his hand again. For the first time in years, Michael felt something crack in the wall he'd built around his heart. This little girl, his niece, looked at him like he was something special, not because of his money or his power, but just because he was her uncle. "I'd like that," he said quietly. As they walked to Rachel's apartment, Rose skipped between them, chattering about school and her friends, and how she helped her mom bake cookies every Sunday. Michael noticed Rachel's simple but neat clothes, the way she carried herself with dignity, despite clearly living a much simpler life than his. Their small apartment building wasn't in a bad neighborhood, but it was worlds away from his penthouse or his mansion in the Hamptons. Rose ran ahead up the stairs while Rachel unlocked the door to apartment 3B. "It's not much," Rachel said softly, "but it's home." Michael stepped inside and was immediately struck by how warm it felt. Photos covered the walls, mostly of Rose, at different ages. Cheerful drawings were stuck to the refrigerator. A worn but comfortable-looking couch had colorful throw pillows and a handmade quilt draped over it. This place had something his massive houses never had. It felt lived in, loved in. "Sit down, Uncle Michael." Rose patted the couch next to her. "I'll get the cookies." As Michael sat down, he noticed something on the side table. It was a framed photograph of him and Rachel from years ago at their parents' last Christmas together. They were both smiling, his arm around her shoulders. He remembered that day clearly, before the gambling, before everything fell apart. Rachel caught him looking at it. "That's the picture Rose saw in my wallet," she explained quietly. "I've kept it all these years. I wanted her to know she had an uncle, even if—" She trailed off, pain flickering across her face. "Cookies," Rose announced, returning with a plate of slightly misshapen but wonderful-smelling chocolate chip cookies. "I helped make them. Try one, Uncle Michael." Michael took a cookie, and as the warm chocolate melted in his mouth, he realized something. All his wealth, all his power, hadn't given him anything close to the simple joy of sharing cookies with his long-lost sister and the niece he never knew he had. "They're perfect," he said, and Rose beamed with pride. As the evening sun streamed through the windows of the modest apartment, Michael Peterson, one of the richest men in New York, sat on a worn couch eating homemade cookies, and for the first time in 10 years, that empty feeling in his chest began to fade, replaced by something warm and forgotten: hope. A week after their unexpected meeting in the park, Michael couldn't stop thinking about Rachel and Rose. He sat in his usual morning meeting, barely listening as his executives droned on about quarterly projections. Instead, his mind kept going, back to those homemade cookies and Rose's bright smile. "Sir?" His CFO, James Wilson, cleared his throat. "Your thoughts on the merger?" "Schedule another meeting for tomorrow," Michael said, standing up suddenly. "There's somewhere I need to be." 20 minutes later, his driver pulled up in front of Rachel's apartment building. Michael had looked up everything he could about his sister's life over the past 10 years. She worked as an administrative assistant at a local community center. Her husband, Tom, had died in a car accident when Rose was just 2 years old. The thought of Rachel raising Rose alone all these years made his chest hurt. He pressed the buzzer for apartment 3B. "Yes," Rachel's voice crackled through the speaker. "It's Michael." A long pause, then the door buzzed open. Rachel was waiting at her apartment door, wearing simple work clothes. "I wasn't expecting you," she said quietly. "I know, I should have called first." "No, it's fine. Come in. I just made coffee." The apartment looked different in the morning light. Michael noticed things he hadn't seen before: the worn spots on the carpet, the carefully mended curtains, the stack of bills on the kitchen counter. "Rose is at school," Rachel said, pouring coffee into 2 mismatched mugs. "She hasn't stopped talking about her Uncle Michael all week." "Rachel, Michael started, then stopped. "I've been thinking about everything, about what happened 10 years ago." Rachel's hands shook slightly as she set the coffee mugs down. "A lot has changed since then, Michael. I can see that. You seem better. I am better." Rachel sat down across from him. "After you cut me off, I hit rock bottom. I lost everything. But then I found out I was pregnant with Rose." She smiled sadly. "She saved my life. I knew I had to get clean, had to be better, for her." "You could have told me about her." Rachel's eyes flashed with anger. "Could I? You made it pretty clear you wanted nothing to do with me anymore. Your lawyers told me never to contact you again." Michael winced. "I was trying to help you. You kept asking for money, kept gambling it away." "I know." Rachel's voice was quiet, but firm. "I'm not blaming you anymore, Michael. You did what you thought was right, and maybe you were right. I needed to hit bottom before I could climb back up. But you did it alone. All of it. Rose, getting clean, after Tom died. I wasn't alone." Rachel got up and walked to the refrigerator. She pointed to a photo of a group of people outside a building, the community center. "They saved me. When Tom died, I was lost. But Sophia, she runs the center. She gave me a job, helped me find affordable daycare for Rose, got me into a support group." Michael studied the photo. A tall woman with warm brown eyes stood in the center, her arm around Rachel's shoulders. Something about her face caught his attention, the kindness in her expression, the quiet strength. "That's Sophia," Rachel said, noticing his interest. "She's amazing. She runs the whole center on a shoestring budget, but she never turns anyone away who needs help." "The kind of help I should have given you," Michael said softly. Rachel touched his arm. "Michael, stop. We can't change the past. But maybe we can try to build something new, for Rose's sake, if nothing else." She's incredible, your daughter. Our parents would have adored her. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Mom and Dad, do you ever wonder what they'd think of us now? Dad would probably say we're both too stubborn for our own good, Michael said, attempting a smile. Just like him. Rachel wiped her eyes. You know, Rose asks about them sometimes. I show her pictures, tell her stories. She loves hearing about how Dad used to dress up as Santa every Christmas. Remember how he'd always eat half the cookies? We left out, then blame it on the reindeer. They both laughed, and for a moment, it felt like the past 10 years melted away. But then Rachel's phone buzzed. A text message. Oh no, she said, reading it. The center's pipes burst again. Sophia's trying to deal with it, but she bit her lip. We can't afford another major repair right now. Michael stood up. Let me help. Michael, no, I'm not asking for money. I know you're not, but let me do this. Not just for you, for all the people the center helps, the people they helped when I didn't. Rachel studied his face for a long moment. Okay, she finally said, but you have to come with me. Meet Sophia. See what the center does. Really understand it. Deal. Michael pulled out his phone. I'll have my car brought around. No, Rachel said firmly. We'll take the subway. If you want to understand my world, you need to live in it for a while. Michael stared at her, then slowly put his phone away. Lead the way, little sister. As they walked to the subway station, Rachel told him about the center's programs, addiction support groups, job training, child care for single parents, food bank. Michael listened, really listened, for the first time in years. You know what the hardest part was? Rachel said as they swiped their Metro cards. Not the money problems or even getting clean. It was feeling so alone. Sophia and the center gave me back my dignity, made me feel like I mattered again. Michael thought about his massive empty houses, his lonely dinners, his life full of people who only wanted something from him. I think I understand that feeling, he said quietly. Rachel squeezed his hand as they boarded the crowded train. It's not too late for us, Michael, to be family again. As the subway rattled through the tunnels under New York City, Michael Peterson, in his $1,000 suit, stood holding a subway pole next to his sister. People rushed past them, no one recognizing the famous billionaire. For once, he was just a brother trying to make things right with his sister. And somewhere ahead, in a building with broken pipes and a tight budget, Sophia Martinez was about to meet a man who would change her life, and whose life she would change in return. The Hope Community Center wasn't what Michael expected. From Rachel's stories, he'd imagined something bigger. Instead, he found himself standing in front of a worn 3-story building with faded paint and a small sign. Water was pooling near the entrance, and a woman in jeans and a simple blue sweater was directing people away from the worst of it. Sophia, Rachel called out, hurrying forward. How bad is it? The woman turned, and Michael found himself looking into the warmest brown eyes he'd ever seen. This was the woman from the photograph, but in person, she had a presence that the picture hadn't captured. Rachel, thank goodness you're here. The main pipe burst in the basement. We've had to close the daycare center and cancel today's support group meetings. Sophia ran a hand through her dark curly hair, clearly stressed. Then she noticed Michael. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ignore you. I'm Sophia Martinez. Michael. Peterson. He extended his hand, surprised by her firm handshake. I'm Rachel's brother. Sophia's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't show the usual reaction people had when they realized who he was. Instead, she looked at Rachel with concern. Rachel told me about you, Sophia said carefully, about everything you've been through as a family. I'm here to help, Michael said quickly, with the pipes and anything else the center needs. Sophia's expression turned guarded. Mr. Peterson, while we appreciate the offer, please call me Michael. Michael, Sophia continued, we've worked very hard to build trust in this community. Our people know they can come here without feeling judged or like they owe anyone anything. I understand that, Michael said. I'm not here to take over or change things. I just want to help make things better for my sister and for all the people you help here. Sophia studied him for a long moment. All right, she finally said. But first I want you to see what we really do here. Rachel, can you show him around while I deal with the plumber? Rachel nodded, taking Michael's arm. As they walked through the building, she pointed out the different rooms. The daycare center where Rose had spent her early years, the meeting rooms where support groups gathered, the small computer lab where people could search for jobs. And this, Rachel said, stopping at a wall covered in photographs. "This is our wall of hope." Michael stepped closer. The wall was filled with before and after pictures, people on their first day at the center, looking lost and broken, paired, with photos of them months or years later, clean, healthy, smiling. "That's me," Rachel said softly, pointing to a photo. Michael's heart clenched. In the first picture, Rachel looked hollow-eyed and desperate. The second showed her holding baby Rose, her eyes clear and proud. "Why didn't you tell me?" Michael whispered. "About Rose, about getting clean?" "I wanted to," Rachel admitted, "so many times, but I needed to do it on my own, prove to myself that I could. Sophia taught me that asking for help doesn't mean letting someone else fix everything for you." "She seems different from what I expected," Rachel smiled knowingly. "Sophia's special. She doesn't care about money or status. She cares about people, real people with real problems. That's why this place works." They heard voices from downstairs and went to investigate. Sophia was arguing with a man in coveralls, the plumber. "Ms. Martinez, I'm sorry, but this is a major job. The whole system needs to be replaced. We're talking at least $50,000. Sophia's face fell, but she kept her composure. "I understand. Thank you for looking at it. We'll figure something out." "I'll take care of it," Michael said, stepping forward. "Mr. Peterson," Sophia started. "Michael," he corrected gently. "And please let me do this. No strings attached." "Everything has strings," Sophia said. "Not this time." Michael turned to the plumber. "Get started right away. Bill my office directly." He handed the man his business card. The plumber's eyes went wide as he recognized the name. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." After he left, Sophia looked at Michael with a mix of gratitude and wariness. "Thank you. But you should know, this place, what we do here, it's not about throwing money at problems." "I'm starting to understand that," Michael said. Maybe you could show me more. Help me understand what this place really means to people." Sophia's expression softened slightly. "You really want to know?" "I do." "All right then. Come back tomorrow morning, early. See what a typical day looks like here. I have meeting. Reschedule them," Sophia said firmly. "If you want to be part of this, really part of it, you need to understand what we do from the ground up." Michael looked at Rachel, who was trying to hide a smile. His sister knew Sophia was testing him. "I'll be here," he promised. "What time?" 6 a.m. That's when we start setting up breakfast for our families." Michael couldn't remember. The last time he'd been anywhere at 6 in the morning. That wasn't his office or a business meeting. But something in Sophia's steady gaze made him want to prove himself. 6 a.m. it is. As Michael and Rachel left the center that evening, he noticed Sophia watching them from the doorway. She was talking to a young mother with 2 small children, her face animated and caring. Something stirred in Michael's chest, something he hadn't felt in a very long time. "She's something else, isn't she?" Rachel said, catching his expression. "She certainly is," Michael agreed quietly. That night, in his penthouse apartment, Michael looked around at his expensive furniture and designer decorations. Everything was perfect, pristine, and completely lifeless. He thought about the worn but welcoming rooms at the community center, about Sophia's passionate defense of her work, about the wall of hope with its stories of transformation. For the first time in years, he set his alarm for before sunrise. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, Michael Peterson would step into a world where his money and power meant nothing, a world where people like Sophia Martinez measured worth by the lives you touched, not the deals you closed. As he drifted off to sleep, he found himself thinking about warm brown eyes and a challenging smile. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. At 5:45 a.m., Michael pulled up to the Hope Community Center in his Ferrari. He immediately felt foolish. The expensive car looked completely out of place on the quiet street. Sophia was already there, unlocking the front door, wearing jeans and a simple green t-shirt. She raised an eyebrow at his car. "You might want to think about taking the subway next time," she said. "That car probably costs more than our annual budget." Michael felt his face get hot. "I didn't think." "That's the problem, isn't it?" Sophia said, but her voice was gentle. "Come on, we've got work to do." Inside, Sophia handed him an apron. Michael stared at it like it was from another planet. "Don't tell me you've never worn an apron before," Sophia said. "I have people who cook for me." Sophia shook her head. "Not today. Today you're helping make breakfast for 30 families." For the next hour, Michael Peterson, CEO of Peterson Technologies, learned how to scramble eggs and make coffee in industrial-sized pots. His first batch of eggs was terrible. too runny and somehow burned at the same time. Sophia didn't criticize him. She just showed him how to do it right, her hands guiding his on the spatula. "The trick is to keep them moving," she explained. Her shoulder brushed against his, and Michael felt a strange flutter in his stomach. By 7 a.m., people started arriving. Michael watched as Sophia greeted everyone by name, asking about their kids, their jobs, their progress in various programs. She remembered everything about everyone. "Maria!" Sophia called out to a young woman with 2 small children. "How did the job interview go yesterday?" "I got it," Maria said proudly. "Thanks to the computer classes here. I start next week." "That's wonderful," Sophia hugged her. "We'll need to talk about childcare options for the kids." Michael served eggs and toast, trying to copy Sophia's warm way with people. At first, some recognized him from the news and seemed nervous. But as the morning went on, they began to relax. "You're Rachel's brother, aren't you?" an elderly woman asked as he refilled her coffee. "She's such a blessing to this place. And that little Rose, sunshine itself, that child." "Yes, she is," Michael agreed, feeling a surge of pride. After breakfast, Sophia put him to work, fixing chairs in the meeting room. As he worked, he could hear her in her office next door talking to someone. "Listen to me, Jenny," Sophia was saying. "What your husband did, that's abuse. You and your kids deserve better. We can help you get out, find a safe place." Michael's hands tightened on the screwdriver. He thought about his own power, his money, all wasted on making more money while people like Sophia fought real battles every day. At lunch, a group of kids from the daycare center ran through the hallway. One little boy tripped and fell, starting to cry. Before Michael could react, Sophia was there, scooping the boy up. "Hey there, Tommy," she said softly. "Let's see that knee." She pulled a Band-Aid from her pocket. She seemed to always have exactly what people needed. And soon, Tommy was laughing again. "You're good with kids," Michael said. "They're the easy part," Sophia replied. "It's the grown-ups who are complicated." "Like me?" Sophia looked at him thoughtfully. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone more entitled, less willing to learn." She smiled slightly. "I have to admit, you surprised me by showing up at 6 a.m., and those eggs did get better." "I'm trying," Michael said quietly. "I can see that." Sophia's eyes met his. "Question is, why? Really why?" Michael thought about it. "When I saw Rachel's picture on that wall, I realized I failed her. I thought throwing money at her problem was enough, but you showed her another way. You helped her save herself." "Rachel did the hard work," Sophia said. "We just gave her the tools and the support." "That's what I want to learn," Michael said. "How to really help people, not just write checks." Sophia studied him for a long moment. "Well, you can start by helping me with the after-school program this afternoon. These kids don't need a billionaire. They need someone to help with their math homework and listen to their stories." That afternoon, Michael sat with a group of children, including Rose, who had come straight from school. His niece beamed with pride as she introduced him to her friends. "This is my Uncle Michael," she announced. "He's really smart, but he doesn't know how to cook eggs very well." The kids laughed, and Michael found himself laughing too. He helped them with their homework, played board games, and listened to their dreams. One boy wanted to be a computer programmer, Michael's own field, but his family couldn't afford a computer. "Maybe we could start a coding class here," Michael suggested to Sophia later. "I could teach it myself." Sophia's face lit up. "You'd do that? Commit to coming here regularly?" "Yes," Michael said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "I want to be part of this place, really part of it." After the kids left, Michael helped Sophia close up the center. They were the last ones there, and something about the quiet evening made him bold. "Would you like to get dinner?" he asked. "To discuss plans for the coding class, of course." Sophia gave him a knowing look. "Mr. Peterson, are you asking me out?" "Michael," he corrected automatically. "And yes, I guess I am." "I don't date donors," Sophia said firmly. Michael's heart sank. "But," she continued with a small smile, "I might have dinner with a volunteer who makes terrible eggs and wants to teach kids to code." That evening they ate at a small diner near the center, Sophia's choice, not his usual expensive restaurants. Over simple burgers and fries, they talked about the center, about the people they helped, about their hopes for the future. Michael found himself telling her things he'd never told anyone, about the pressure of running his company, about his regrets with Rachel, about how empty his success felt sometimes. "You know what I think?" Sophia said, stealing one of his Fries, I think you've spent so long being Michael Peterson, billionaire CEO, that you forgot how to just be Michael. And who is that? Sophia's eyes softened. I think we're just starting to find out. As they walked back to her car, their hands brushed accidentally. Michael felt that flutter in his stomach again. Sophia looked up at him, and for a moment, he thought, but she stepped back, professional again. 6 a.m. tomorrow? I'll be here, Michael promised, but maybe I'll take the subway this time. Sophia laughed. Now that I'd like to see. That night, as Michael lay in his bed in his luxury apartment, he couldn't stop thinking about Sophia's laugh, about the way she cared so deeply for everyone around her, about how she saw right through his wealth to who he really was, or could be. His phone buzzed with messages about business deals and board meetings, but for the first time in his life, Michael Peterson had found something more important than his empire. He had found a purpose, a chance to make real change in people's lives, and maybe, just maybe, he had found someone who could change his life too. Mr. Peterson, the board members are getting impatient, Sarah, Michael's assistant, said as she followed him through the office. You've missed 3 meetings this week already. Michael was changing into a clean shirt he kept in his office. He'd spent the morning at the community center, again helping serve breakfast and teaching his new coding class. There was still a spot of pancake syrup on his sleeve from when little Tommy had hugged him goodbye. Reschedule them, Michael said, and get me the paperwork for setting up a charitable foundation. Sarah hesitated. Sir, Mr. Davidson from the board called again. He's concerned about rumors. What rumors? That you're distracted, that you're spending too much time in that neighborhood. The stock price has dropped 5 points this week. Before Michael could answer, his office door burst open. James Wilson, his CFO, stormed in waving a tablet. Have you seen this? James demanded, showing Michael a news website. The headline read, Peterson Technologies CEO going soft. Billionaire spotted serving breakfast at local charity. There was a photo of Michael in an apron, serving food at the center. In the background, Sophia was smiling at something he was saying. The board is meeting in an hour, James said. They're worried you're having some kind of breakdown. First, you reconnect with your gambling addict sister. Then you start hanging around in that neighborhood. Watch it, Michael warned, his voice turning cold. That's my family you're talking about. Family? James laughed harshly. Where was this family when we were building this company, when we were working 18-hour days? Now suddenly you're missing meetings to play charity worker? Get out, Michael said quietly. Both of you. After they left, Michael loosened his tie and stared out his office window at the city below. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Kids asking when their coding teacher is coming back. Tommy says he's saving you a pancake. Michael smiled, then noticed another message from James. Board meeting in 45 minutes. Your future as CEO will be discussed. Suddenly, his office phone rang. It was Rachel. Michael, have you seen the news? I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't brought you to the center... Stop, Michael said firmly. This isn't your fault. Actually, maybe it's the best thing that could have happened. What do you mean? I need to go to a board meeting. Can you meet me at the center afterward? Bring Sophia. I have an idea I want to discuss with both of you. An hour later, Michael stood in the Peterson Technologies boardroom. 12 serious faces stared back at him. Michael, Robert Davidson, the head of the board, began. We're concerned about your recent activities. This company needs a focused leader. You're absolutely right, Michael said calmly. The board members looked surprised. That's why I'm announcing the creation of the Peterson Foundation, Michael continued. 20% of my personal shares in the company will fund it. We'll focus on technology education for underprivileged communities, starting with the Hope Community Center. You can't be serious, James sputtered. That's worth billions. I've never been more serious. Michael's voice was firm. And if the board has a problem with how I spend my own money and time, you should know that I still control 51% of this company's shares. You can either support this initiative or... He left the threat hanging. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Now, Michael said, gathering his papers, if you'll excuse me, I have a coding class to teach. He walked out, leaving them stunned behind him. His phone buzzed again. Sophia. Rachel says you want to meet. Everything okay? Better than okay, he texted back. I'm finally doing something that matters. At the center that afternoon, Michael found Sophia in her office, surrounded by paperwork. She looked up when he came in, concern on her face. I saw the news, she said. Michael, if this is causing problems for you... It's not, he assured her. Actually, it's helped me see things clearly for the first time. He sat down across from her desk. I want to create a foundation to support places like this, to give kids a chance to learn technology skills, to help people rebuild their lives. Sophia's eyes widened. That's incredible, but your company will survive. What about you? What about me? I want you to help run it. You know what these communities need better than anyone. You could do so much more with proper funding. Michael, Sophia interrupted softly, is this about the foundation or about us? The question hung in the air between them. Over the past weeks, their friendship had grown deeper. The way she smiled at him, the casual touches as they worked together, the long conversations after the center closed. Both, Michael admitted. Sophia, I don't, she said, but her voice was gentle. Michael, what you're doing is wonderful, but I need to know you're doing it for the right reasons, not for me. It started because of you, Michael said honestly. You showed me what real purpose looks like. But now I'm doing it because it's right, because it's who I want to be. Sophia studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, that warm, genuine smile that made his heart skip. Okay, she said, tell me more about this foundation. They spent the next hour planning, dreaming, imagining what they could do with real resources behind Sophia's vision. Rachel joined them, adding her own experiences and ideas. As the sun set outside Sophia's office window, Michael looked at these two women who had changed his life so completely. His sister, stronger and wiser than he'd ever given her credit for, and Sophia, who had awakened something in him he thought had died long ago. We're going to change lives, Sophia said, her eyes shining with excitement. You already have, Michael replied softly, looking directly at her. You already have. Sophia blushed slightly and looked away, but Michael saw her small smile. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to see him differently too, not as the billionaire trying to buy his way into her world, but as the man he was becoming because of her. The morning of the Peterson Foundation's launch event dawned bright and clear. Michael stood in front of his mirror, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. The community center's main room had been transformed for the press conference, but Sophia had insisted on keeping it simple. No fancy decorations, just clean chairs and a small podium. His phone rang. It was James Wilson. Turn on the news, James said without greeting. Now, Michael grabbed his remote and flipped on the TV. His stomach dropped as he read the headline scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Peterson Technologies. Scandal. Sources claim CEO's new foundation a cover for family fraud. The reporter was speaking. Sources inside Peterson Technologies claim the new charitable foundation is actually a way to funnel money to CEO Michael Peterson's sister, Rachel Walker, a known gambling addict. Questions are also being raised about Peterson's relationship with Sophia Martinez, director of Hope Community Center. Michael's hands shook as he turned off the TV. His phone immediately buzzed with a text from Rachel. Michael, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Maybe we should cancel the launch. Before he could reply, Sophia called. Don't you dare cancel, she said firmly when he answered. This is exactly why we need this foundation, to show that people can change, that everyone deserves a second chance. Sophia, they're dragging your name through the mud too. I don't care about that. But the families here, the kids in your coding class, they need to see you stand up and fight for what's right. Michael closed his eyes, remembering Tommy's face when he'd successfully written his first computer program, the pride in Rachel's eyes when she gave tours of the center, the way Sophia lit up when she talked about their plans for the future. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said. When Michael arrived at the center, reporters were already gathering outside. He pushed through them, ignoring their questions, and found Sophia in her office. She was wearing a simple blue dress. He'd never seen her dressed up before. She looked beautiful. You look, he started, like I'm trying too hard. Sophia smoothed her dress nervously. Perfect, Michael finished. You look perfect. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the chaos outside faded away. Then Rachel burst in. The reporters are saying horrible things, she said, close to tears. They're bringing up everything from my past. Maybe I shouldn't be here today. Actually, Michael said slowly, I think you need to be front and center. Both women looked at him in surprise. Michael's right, Sophia said, understanding dawning in her eyes. Rachel, your story is exactly what this foundation is about. You're living proof that people can change when they get the right support. An hour later, the center's main room was packed with reporters and cameras. Michael stood at the podium. Rachel and Sophia beside him. He looked out at the crowd, took a deep breath and began to speak. 10 years ago, I thought I had all the answers. I thought money alone could solve problems. I turned my back on my sister when she needed me most, thinking that tough love meant no love at all. He looked at Rachel, who gave him an encouraging nod. But thanks to this community center and its remarkable director, Sophia Martinez, my sister found what money couldn't buy: real support, understanding, and the chance to rebuild her life. Today, she helps others do the same. Michael gestured to the walls around them. This place changed my sister's life, and through her, it changed mine. The Peterson Foundation isn't about charity, it's about investing in people, in second chances, in hope. He went on to outline their plans: technology education programs, job training, childcare support, all based on the model that had worked so well at Hope Community Center. After the formal presentation, a reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Peterson, how do you respond to allegations that this foundation is a cover for financial misconduct?" Before Michael could answer, Sophia stepped forward. "I'd like to address that," she said clearly. "I've spent my life helping people rebuild from rock bottom. I've seen Rachel Walker transform from a woman in crisis to someone who inspires others every day. And I've watched Michael Peterson learn that true wealth isn't about money. It's about how many lives you touch." She looked directly into the cameras. "So yes, I'm proud to partner with the Peterson Foundation, not because of Michael's money, but because of who he's chosen to become." The room fell silent. Then, from the back, a small voice piped up. "Uncle Michael! Uncle Michael!" Rose came running down the aisle, still in her school uniform. She jumped into Michael's arms, and the photographer's cameras started clicking frantically. "Did I miss your big speech?" Rose asked innocently. The room filled with gentle laughter, breaking the tension. Michael hugged his niece close, not caring about the cameras anymore. "Actually, sweetheart, you just made it perfect." Later, after the reporters had left and the chairs were being put away, Michael found Sophia in her office again. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for what you said out there, for believing in me." Sophia looked up at him, her eyes soft. "You made it easy to believe in you, Michael. You didn't just talk about change, you changed." He stepped closer to her desk. "Sophia, I know you said you don't date donors." "I don't," she interrupted, standing up. "But I never said anything about dating foundation partners." Michael's heart skipped. "Does that mean—" Sophia came around her desk to stand in front of him. "It means I think we should get dinner, to discuss foundation business, of course." "Of course," Michael smiled. "Just business." But when Sophia reached up to straighten his tie, her touch lingering just a moment too long, they both knew it was much more than business. Outside her office, they could hear Rose chattering excitedly to Rachel about her day at school, the center's regular afternoon activities, resuming as if it were any normal day. And maybe that was the real victory, that despite the headlines and drama, life at Hope Community Center would go on, touching more lives, creating more second chances. Michael and Sophia walked out together, not holding hands. Not yet, but walking close enough that their shoulders brushed. Sometimes the biggest changes in life didn't come with fanfare and press conferences. Sometimes they came quietly, in moments like this, when two people from different worlds found themselves walking the same path. 3 months after the foundation's launch, Michael sat in his usual spot at the community center's kitchen, drinking coffee with Sophia after the morning breakfast service. These quiet moments had become his favorite part of the day. "The new computer lab opens next week," Sophia said, stealing a piece of toast from his plate, another habit that had developed between them. "Tommy's been asking every day when he can start using the new computers. I think he's more excited about it than I am." Michael laughed. "Though that's hard to believe." Sophia's face turned serious. "You've changed so many lives here, Michael, not just with the money, but with your time, your dedication. You changed." "My life first," Michael said quietly, reaching for her hand across the table. Their fingers had just touched when James Wilson burst into the kitchen, making them both jump apart. "Michael, we have a situation," James said, looking frazzled. "Robert Davidson is making a play for the company. He's convinced 3 board members to side with him. They're calling for an emergency shareholders meeting." Michael's jaw tightened. "On what grounds?" "They're saying your charitable activities have become a distraction. The stock price is down 15% since the foundation launched. Davidson is promising to restore stability to the company." Sophia stood up. "I should give you privacy." "No," Michael said firmly, catching her hand. Stay. This involves you too. He turned to James. When's the meeting? Tomorrow morning. Michael, you need to be prepared. Davidson's been gathering ammunition. He's got private investigators looking into everything. The center, Rachel's past, Sophia's background. My background? Sophia's voice was sharp. What does that have to do with anything? James looked uncomfortable. Davidson's team found some things about your father. Sophia's face went pale. Michael felt her hand tremble in his. Get out, Michael told James. I'll handle this my way. After James left, Michael turned to Sophia. Whatever it is, you can tell me. Sophia pulled her hand away and walked to the window. My father, he's in prison. Has been for 15 years. For what? Armed robbery. He wasn't a good man, Michael. He hurt people. My mother and I ran away when I was 12. She turned to face him, her eyes filled with tears. That's why I started working here. I know what it's like to need a fresh start, to want to be more than your past. Michael crossed the room and took her in his arms. Sophia, nothing in your past changes who you are now. You're the most amazing person I've ever known. She looked up at him. Davidson will use this against you, against the foundation. Let him try, Michael said firmly. I'm not losing everything that matters just to keep my stock price high. Just then, they heard running footsteps in the hallway. Rose burst in, followed by Rachel. Uncle Michael, Miss Sophia, look what I got on my math test. Rose proudly held up a paper with a big A+ on it. It's because of the tutoring program you started. Michael and Sophia quickly wiped their eyes, turning to celebrate Rose's achievement, but Rachel had noticed their emotional moment. Rose, honey, why don't you go show your test to Mrs. Garcia? She'll want to put it on the achievement wall. After Rose left, Rachel looked between Michael and Sophia. What's wrong? They explained the situation with Davidson and the board. Rachel's face hardened when she heard about the private investigators. So they're digging up dirt on all of us, she said. Let them. We have nothing to hide anymore. We're not our past mistakes. The shareholders might not see it that way, Sophia said quietly. Then maybe it's time they learned what real value looks like, Michael said, an idea forming. Rachel, call every family who's been helped by the center. Sophia, get in touch with your contacts at other community organizations. I want everyone. Shout that shareholders meeting tomorrow. Michael, Sophia started. Trust me, he said, taking her hand again. Sometimes people need to see the human side of business. That evening, after the center closed, Michael and Sophia walked through the quiet halls together. You didn't have to stay so late, Sophia said. You must have a lot to prepare for tomorrow. This is more important, Michael replied. He stopped, walking, and turned to face her. Sophia, before everything happens tomorrow, I need you to know something. Michael, please let me finish. When I first came here, I thought I was the one who would help people. But you helped me find myself again. You showed me what really matters in life. Sophia's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were different tears. I love you, Michael said simply. Whatever happens tomorrow, that won't change. For a moment, Sophia just looked at him. Then she reached up, pulled him close, and kissed him. It was soft and sweet and felt like coming home. When they finally broke apart, Sophia whispered, I love you too, even if you are a billionaire who couldn't scramble eggs 3 months ago. Michael laughed and held her close. Tomorrow would bring its challenges, but right now, in this moment, everything was perfect. They didn't notice Rachel watching from her office doorway, smiling through happy tears. She took out her wallet and looked at the old photograph, her and Michael at that last Christmas. Next to it now was a new photo. Michael, Sophia, and Rose at the foundation launch, all laughing at something Rose had said. Sometimes, Rachel thought, the best family pictures aren't the ones we keep in our wallets, but the ones we create every day with the people who choose to love us, past mistakes and all. The morning of the shareholders' meeting, the Peterson Technologies lobby was packed with people, but not the usual crowd of suits and briefcases. Families from the community center filled the space, many holding handmade signs. Hope changes lives, read one. My dad got clean at Hope Center, read another, held by a young girl about Rose's age. Robert Davidson pushed through the crowd, his face red with anger. This is outrageous. Security, remove these people. They're shareholders, Michael said calmly, walking up with Sophia and Rachel beside him. Every family here was given voting shares from my personal stock. They have every right to be at this meeting. Davidson's face got even redder. You can't do that. Actually, I can, and I did. Michael smiled. Shall we begin the meeting? Inside the main conference room, Davidson took the podium first. He clicked through slides showing dropping stock prices and news headlines about Michael's erratic behavior. "And now," Davidson said with a sneer, "let's talk about the people Mr. Peterson has chosen to associate with. A gambling addict sister who nearly bankrupted her family. A community center director whose father is a convicted felon." "That's enough!" The shout came from the back of the room. Everyone turned to see Tommy, the little boy from Michael's coding class, standing on his chair. "Miss Sophia helped my mum get a job," Tommy continued, "and Mr. Michael taught me how to make computer games. He's not just a rich guy anymore, he's our friend." Other voices joined in. Parents stood up to tell their stories, of addiction overcome, of jobs found, of lives rebuilt. Children talked about the new computer lab and their dreams of working in technology. Maria, the young mother who'd gotten her first job through the center, spoke directly to the shareholders. "Before Hope Center, I was hopeless. Now I have a career and my kids have a future. That's worth more than any stock price." Davidson tried to interrupt, but Michael took the podium. "When I started Peterson Technologies," he said, "I thought success meant bigger profits, fancier offices, more power. I was wrong. Real success is measured in lives changed, in families rebuilt, in communities strengthened." He gestured to the crowd. "These people aren't just statistics on a charity report. They're our neighbors, our fellow human beings. And yes, some of them have made mistakes. Some of them come from difficult backgrounds. But that's exactly why. They deserve our support." Michael looked at Sophia, drawing strength from her proud smile. "The woman you're trying to smear. She created a place where people can rebuild their lives. My sister, who you call a liability, she's living proof that change is possible when people believe in you." Rachel wiped tears from her eyes as Michael continued. "Yes, our stock price is down, but our impact on real lives is up, and I believe that in the long run, doing good is good business. That's why I'm announcing today that Peterson Technologies will be partnering with community centers across the country to create technology training programs. We're not just giving money. We're creating a pipeline of talented, dedicated workers who know the value of second chances." A murmur went through the crowd. Several major shareholders sat up straighter, looking interested. "So," Michael concluded, "you can vote to remove me as CEO, but know that you're not just voting on stock prices. You're voting on whether this company will be part of the problem or part of the solution." The room was silent for a moment. Then, Tommy started clapping. Soon, the whole room joined in. When the votes were counted, Michael had won by a significant margin. Davidson stormed out, but several board members stayed behind, suddenly interested in discussing the nationwide training program. Later that evening, Michael, Sophia, Rachel, and Rose celebrated at Rachel's apartment with pizza and ice cream, Rose's choice. "I still can't believe Tommy stood up in front of all those people," Rachel laughed. "He's a brave kid," Sophia said, "like someone else I know." She squeezed Michael's hand. "Uncle Michael," Rose said, ice cream dripping down her chin, "are you and Miss Sophia going to get married?" Michael choked on his pizza, while Sophia burst out laughing. "Rose," Rachel scolded, but she was smiling too. "What? They love each other." "I can tell," Rose said matter-of-factly, "and Miss Sophia already feels like family." Michael looked at Sophia, who had stopped laughing, and was looking back at him with soft eyes. "She does, doesn't she?" Michael said quietly. Sophia blushed and changed the subject, but later, as they stood on Rachel's balcony watching the sunset, she brought it up again. "Rose has quite an imagination," she said. "Does she?" Michael turned to face her. "I think she sees things pretty clearly. You do feel like family, Sophia. You and the center and all the people there, you've become my home." "Michael, I'm not proposing," he said quickly. "Not yet. We have time. But I want you to know that Rose is right. I do love. You and I do want forever with you." Sophia stepped closer to him. "Even though my father's in prison, even though being with me might hurt your company?" "Especially because of those things," Michael said, "because you understand what it means to overcome your past, to choose who you want to be. You taught me how to do that too." Sophia kissed him then, soft and sweet like their first kiss, but with a promise of forever in it. Inside, Rachel watched them through the window while cleaning up the pizza boxes. Rose came up beside her. "See," Rose said, "I told you they love each other." Rachel hugged her daughter close. "You know what, sweetheart? Sometimes the best kind of love is the kind that doesn't just change two people, it changes everyone around them too." Rose nodded wisely. Like how Uncle Michael changed when he met Miss Sophia, and how you changed when you found the center. Exactly like that, Rachel said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. Outside, the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Michael and Sophia stayed on the balcony, talking softly about their dreams for the future. Dreams that now, more than ever, they knew they would build together. 6 months after the shareholders' meeting, the Hope Community Center was buzzing with excitement. The success of Michael's technology training program had drawn national attention, and centers across the country were calling to partner with the Peterson Foundation. Seattle wants to open a center next month, Sophia said, spreading papers across her desk. And Chicago is ready to start as soon as we can train their staff. Michael smiled, watching her work. Sophia had taken charge of the foundation's expansion, and she was amazing at it. She still insisted on serving breakfast 3 times a week and knowing every family's story, but now she was also teaching other centers how to create the same kind of caring community. I had another idea, Michael said. What if we bought the building next door? We could expand the daycare center, add more classrooms. Michael Peterson, Sophia teased. Are you trying to build an empire again? No, he said seriously. I'm trying to build a future. Our future. Sophia's breath caught as Michael got down on one knee beside her desk. I was going to do this somewhere fancy, he said, pulling out a small box. But this place, this is where I fell in love with you, where I learned who I really wanted to be. Michael, Sophia whispered. You changed my life, Sophia Martinez. You showed me that real wealth isn't in bank accounts, it's in the lives we touch, the love we share, the family we build. He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. Will you marry me? Before Sophia could answer, they heard a small gasp from the doorway. Rose stood there, her eyes wide with excitement. Say yes, Miss Sophia. Rose bounced on her toes. Please say yes. Rachel appeared behind her daughter, trying to pull her away. Rose, this is a private moment. But Sophia was laughing through her tears. Come here, both of you, she said, holding out her arms. Rose ran to hug her, while Rachel stood in the doorway, smiling. Well? Michael was still on one knee, looking nervous despite Rose's enthusiasm. Sophia took his face in her hands. Yes, she said softly. Yes to everything. The marriage, the future, all of it. Michael slipped the ring on her finger, and Rose clapped with delight. Does this mean you'll be my aunt for real now? Rose asked. It sure does, sweetheart. Sophia hugged her tight. Rachel wiped tears from her eyes. I'll go get some sparkling cider from the kitchen. We need to celebrate. But before she could leave, James Wilson appeared in the doorway, looking worried. Michael, we have a problem, he said. Robert Davidson started a rival foundation. He's offering twice our funding to centers that break ties with us. Michael felt Sophia tense beside him, but when he looked at her, she was smiling. Let him. Try, she said firmly. Money isn't what makes our programs work. It's the relationships we build, the trust we earn. You can't buy that. She's right, Rachel added. Remember Maria? Davidson's people tried to recruit her for their program last week. She told them she wouldn't leave Hope Center for all the money in the world. Just then, they heard excited voices from the computer lab. Tommy came running in, waving a paper. Mr. Michael, Miss Sophia, look. He thrust the paper at them proudly. I won first place in the coding competition. Michael looked at the certificate. It was from a citywide technology contest for middle school students. Tommy, their first coding student, had beaten kids from the city's most expensive private schools. See, Sophia said to James, this is what Davidson doesn't understand. We're not just teaching skills, we're building confidence, community, hope. James looked around the office, at Tommy's proud face, at Rose hugging Sophia, at Rachel standing tall and strong, and slowly nodded. You know what, he said, I think I finally get it. This isn't about charity at all, is it? It's about family. Speaking of family, Michael said, standing up and putting his arm around Sophia. We have some news to share. James noticed the ring on Sophia's finger and broke into a genuine smile. Well, it's about time. Congratulations, both of you. The next few hours turned into an impromptu engagement party. Families from the center brought food, kids made decorations, and the computer lab students created a digital slideshow of photos, showing Michael and Sophia's journey together. Late that evening, as they were cleaning up, Michael found Sophia standing in front of the wall of hope. We need to add your father to our prison outreach program, she said quietly. Michael wrapped his arms around her from behind. Are you sure? Everyone deserves a chance to change, right? That's what we believe in. She turned to face him. And I want him to see who I've become, who we've become together. Whatever you want, Michael said. We'll face it together. You know, Sophia said, playing with his tie like she often did. When Rose first brought you here, I thought you were just another rich guy trying to feel good about himself. I was, Michael admitted. But somebody taught me there was more to life than money. And somebody taught me that not all rich guys are shallow, Sophia teased. Then she grew serious. We're going to help so many people, aren't we? We already are, Michael said, gesturing to the wall of hope. And this is just the beginning. They looked at the photos together. Rachel's transformation, Tommy's coding achievements, countless other stories of lives changed and hope restored. Soon they would add pictures from centers across the country, creating a network of hope and second chances. I love you, Sophia said simply. Rich guy and all. Michael laughed and pulled her close. I love you too, even if you still steal my toast every morning. From down the hall they heard Rose's voice. Mommy, can I be the flower girl? Well, Sophia smiled, I guess we better start planning a wedding. As long as we do it here, Michael said, at the center, where it all began. Sophia's eyes lit up. With all our families, every single one of them, Michael promised. They sealed the promise with a kiss. While somewhere in the building, Rose was already telling everyone about how she knew they would fall in love right from the start. 1 year later, the Hope Community Center was transformed once again. But this time, instead of press conferences or shareholders' meetings, it was set up for a wedding. Simple white flowers decorated the walls, and chairs were arranged in the main room where so many lives had been changed. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, Rachel said, helping Sophia with her dress in the office. That had become their second home. The dress was simple but elegant, perfect for Sophia. Old is the locket from Mom, Rachel continued, fastening it around Sophia's neck. New is the dress, borrowed is my bracelet, and blue is my favorite hair ribbon, Rose announced, holding up a blue silk ribbon. Now 9 years old, she took her flower girl duties very seriously. Sophia hugged them both. I can't believe this is really happening. I can, Rose said confidently. I knew it from the very first day when I saw Uncle Michael's picture in Mommy's wallet. You certainly did, sweetheart, Rachel smiled. You saw what we all needed before we knew it ourselves. There was a knock at the door. Sophia, it's time. Sophia's heart jumped. It was her father's voice. After 6 months in the center's prison outreach program, he'd been released on parole last week. He was trying hard to change, to make amends, just like everyone else who came through these doors. Come in, Dad, Sophia called. He entered slowly, looking uncomfortable in his new suit, but his eyes filled with pride when he saw her. You look beautiful, Mija, he said softly. Your mother would have been so proud. Sophia hugged him, breathing in the familiar scent that brought back childhood memories. Not all bad, she remembered now. Thank you for being here, Dad, for trying. Thank you for giving me the chance, he replied. Ready to walk down the aisle? In the main room, Michael stood waiting. Tommy, now his best man, stood beside him holding the rings. The room was packed with families from the center, staff from the new centers across the country, and even some of Michael's business. Associates who had finally understood what really mattered. James Wilson sat in the front row, beaming. He'd become one of the Foundation's strongest supporters, using his financial skills to help expand their programs nationwide. Robert Davidson hadn't been invited, but they'd heard he'd started volunteering at a homeless shelter in his neighborhood. Sometimes change spread in unexpected ways. The music started, Rose's music teacher playing the piano, and everyone stood. Rose came down the aisle first, scattering flower petals and grinning from ear to ear. Then Sophia appeared on her father's arm, and Michael felt his heart stop. She was beautiful, but it was more than that. She was everything. His partner, his inspiration, his future. Their vows were simple but meaningful. They talked about second chances and seeing the best in people, about building something bigger than themselves, about love that transforms not just two people, but entire communities. The ring, Michael said to Tommy, who handed it over with a proud smile. You taught me my first computer program, Tommy said. Now I'm teaching the new kids. That's pretty cool, right? Everyone laughed, and the moment perfectly captured what they'd built here, a place where love and learning passed from person to person, growing stronger with each connection. After the ceremony, during the reception, Michael found Rachel standing by the wall of hope. Remember this? She asked, pointing to the old photo of them at Christmas. "I never thought when I kept this picture that it would lead to all this. I never thought a lot of things," Michael said, hugging his sister. "I never thought my life would be so full of love." Sophia joined them, carrying a new photo to add to the wall. It showed Michael teaching his coding class, Sophia talking with a group of mothers, Rachel leading a support group, and Rose helping younger kids with their homework. "Our family," Sophia said softly, pinning it up. "Speaking of family," Rachel said with a smile. "Rose, come here, sweetheart. Bring the envelope." Rose ran over, carrying a large envelope carefully with both hands. "Can I tell them, please?" Rachel nodded, and Rose turned to Michael and Sophia with shining eyes. "The adoption papers came through," she announced. "Tommy's going to be my cousin for real now." Michael and Sophia looked at Rachel in surprise. "I've been fostering him since his mom passed away," Rachel explained. "You both inspired me, showing me that family is about love, not blood. The adoption will be final next month." Sophia hugged her new sister-in-law tight, while Michael knelt down to talk to Rose. "How do you feel about having a brother, sweetheart?" "Are you kidding? It's awesome!" Rose grinned. "Now we're all family for real." The celebration continued into the evening. People shared stories about how the center had changed their lives. Children played together while parents talked and laughed. It wasn't just a wedding reception. It was a celebration of community, of hope, of love in all its forms. As the sun set, Michael and Sophia stepped out onto the center's small balcony for a quiet moment together. "Happy?" Michael asked, holding his wife close. "More than I ever dreamed possible," Sophia answered. "Look at what we've built together." Below them, the street was filled with people they'd helped, lives they'd touched. Rachel was teaching Tommy and Rose a silly dance. Sophia's father was deep in conversation with James about starting a job training program for ex-offenders. Love and hope were everywhere they looked. "You know what?" Michael said. "I think I finally understand what real wealth is." "Oh? And what's that?" "This. All of this. The lives we touch, the family we build, the love we share." He kissed her softly. "And it all started because a little girl saw my photograph in a wallet." Sophia smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. "No, my love. It started because you were brave enough to change. We all were." Inside, Rose was showing everyone her favorite photograph, the one of Uncle Michael from her mum's wallet, now framed alongside pictures of their whole beautiful, complicated, loving family. And in that moment, standing on the balcony of the place where their story began, Michael and Sophia knew that while some people might measure success in dollars and cents, the real measure of a life well lived was in the hearts you touched, the hope you sparked, and the love you were brave enough to share. It was everything they'd ever wanted and more than they'd ever dreamed possible. It was their happily ever after, made more beautiful because they'd built it together, one act of kindness at a time. The end